Batman has been around for 85 years. In that time, new comics have been published every single month, and there are hundreds of different collected editions out there collecting his adventures. So where do you even start? Well, you could start from the beginning by reading the original adventures from 1939 onwards, but they are rather simplistic by modern standards, and they start to get a bit silly very quickly. More recently, there is Grant Morrison's excellent run, but that's really more of a deconstruction of Batman rather than a proper introduction to the character. Or you could read this, DC Finest Batman Year 1 and 2, from the period in the mid-1980s when DC rebooted all of their comics to make them more accessible to new readers. So this collects every issue of Batman and Detective Comics published between November 1986 and October 1987. They're collected in publication order, but not in the order that they happen in universe, as you will see. First up, there are two rather generic stories that could have been published in the 60s or 70s, as Batman and Robin go up against Magpie, and then Penguin. This version of Robin is Jason Todd, but he looks identical to Dick Grayson. These issues tie into the Legends crossover, so they are technically set after Crisis on Infinite Earths, but really they could easily have been left out of this collection. The next story is much better, although it doesn't seem to have a title. It's about a disgraced former cop who starts dressing up as Batman and killing criminals. It feels much darker than the first two issues, and Jason Todd's sympathy for the fake Batman foreshadows his future turn into villainy. Next up, there's a two-parter with Joker and Catwoman. Clearly this is following on from the old continuity. Both of them have been fighting Batman for years, although Catwoman is now trying to go straight, and she even knows Batman's secret identity. Although the Joker does end up brainwashing her into forgetting it and returning to a life of crime. So I guess the point was to reset the character for the new era. Then we get the second part of the fake Batman story, One Batman Too Many, which also brings in Vicky Vale as Bruce Wayne's love interest, who of course would be played by Kim Basinger in the Batman movie a few years later. Then there's a Scarecrow story, Fear for Sale, where we learn that Batman's biggest fear is Jason Todd dying, which of course would happen just a few years later. Then we finally get to Year 1, a 4-part story by Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli. It's an absolute classic. It's influenced many Batman movies and TV shows over the years, and it's head and shoulders above the rest of the stories in the book. There's no supervillains here, just a simple story of James Gordon coming to Gotham and starting to clean up the corrupt police department, and Bruce Wayne making his first appearances as Batman, making a lot of mistakes along the way. The writing and artwork are top quality, and it's simply one of the best Batman stories ever. After this, there's a bit of light relief with the 50th anniversary edition of Detective Comics. This is a 50-page crossover with Slam Bradley, the Elongated Man, and Sherlock Holmes all joining forces to defeat Moriarty. It's a lot of fun, and probably the only time you'll see Batman and Sherlock Holmes in the same story. Next, there is a Mad Hatter story. It starts off seeming like just a throwaway silly romp, complete with a fight on a giant pool table, except for the ending where Robin is shot. This leads into another highlight of the book, My Beginning and My Probable End, where Batman takes Robin to Dr. Leslie Tompkins, and we get a series of flashbacks to Bruce Wayne's childhood. Obviously his parents' murder has been retold many times, but here we get it in the first person, which is incredibly effective. And it's another really well told story. After this we get another 4-issue flashback story, written by Max Allan Collins, with various artists. It starts with Dick Grayson's final outing as Robin. He's injured fighting the Joker, and Batman sends him away, never to be seen again, at least not in this book. But later he comes across Jason Todd stealing the Batmobile's tyres, and decides to take him on as a ward and train him to be the next Robin. His first fight is against Two-Face, who killed Jason Todd's father, so the new Robin has to learn to place justice over revenge. It's not a bad story. There's still a few goofy moments, like the giant roulette wheel, but it does a good job of showcasing Jason's personality and explores the ethics of Batman having a Robin at all. The next story, Mortal Clay, is written by Alan Moore, who is not credited as the original writer for once. It's all about Clayface, although his costume makes him look more like Mr. Freeze, and his romance with a shop window dummy, which is going great until he kills the guard out of jealousy, and Batman has to step in at the end. The distinctive first-person narration makes it easy to tell it's written by Moore, and it's another definite highlight. Lovebird is another villain in love story, as the Penguin gets paroled, finds a girlfriend, and tries to go straight. But Batman refuses to believe he has changed, so he hounds him until he ends up in jail on a technicality. It's a fun story, and it makes a change to see Batman in the wrong for once. This is followed by Batman Year 2, another four-parter. Despite the title, it's not a direct sequel to Year 1. It's written by Mike W. Barr, the regular writer on Detective Comics, and it ties in with his earlier story, establishing Leslie Tompkins as Bruce's foster mother. A vigilante called the Reaper has started killing the criminals of Gotham, and Batman finds himself joining forces with his parents' murderer, Joe Chill, in order to stop him. It's a very dark tale, and Batman seems very out of character, carrying a gun throughout, and almost killing Joe Chill himself. Alan Davis's artwork in Part 1 is very strong, but after that Todd McFarlane takes over, and it becomes very messy and excessively bloody. I'd say it's definitely the low point of the book. Finally, there are two standalone stories. The Sound of Silence, where Batman and Robin take on a mime, who's possibly the least threatening villain they've ever had, and The Crime Doctor's Crimson Clinic, where they take down an evil doctor who's been treating criminals. Not a bad story overall, but pretty standard fare. So it's not a straightforward read. If you really want to read them all in story order, you could read Year 1, then Year 2, then the Jason Todd origin, then everything else. But there would still be big time jumps between all four periods, so that wouldn't be very satisfying. This is probably the best way of collecting it, in the same way that people would have read it at the time. There are a lot of flashbacks, but they are generally the best stories, apart from Year 2 obviously, and the general quality is quite high. So it's a decent read overall, and I'm definitely looking forward to the next volume. I think the plan is to eventually collect every single Batman story in the same format, over 85 volumes at least, so they will no doubt be hopping about a bit in the future. But next year's collection follows directly on from this one, with The Killing Joke, Son of the Demon, and the next year of Batman and Detective Comics. So I'll definitely be getting that, and maybe I'll do a review once I'm finished. So thank you for watching, please subscribe if you want more comic reviews, and I'll see you next time.